Welcome, fellow teachers. Join us for today's Spreads webinar series. Spreads is sharing of presentation resources for the enhancement of learning achievement, digital literacy, and 21st century skills of pre-service teachers. Every series intends to provide support to teacher educators and pre-service teachers in exploring a specific course in professional education. It comes with a 25-minute presentation that elaborates on a content topic. It also provides quiz breakers to encourage audience engagement. Spreads is a faculty-student collaborative instructional materials project of the country's Center for Teacher Education, the Philippine Normal University, Manila, through its Faculty of Education Sciences under the College of Teacher Development. Most significantly, Spreads is created by pre-service teachers for pre-service teachers.
Spread Series 1. Teaching strategies can never be complete without a sharing on closure learning activity. In this session, Spread Series 1 will present what closure learning activities are, what they are for, how they are carried out, and what teachers should keep in mind to make closure learning activities contribute to the students' achievement. So, are you ready? Let's begin by defining closure learning activities. What are closure learning activities? Closure learning activities make up the final part of a lesson plan's Part 3, Learning Procedure. It may also be called as closing activities, where students are given some sort of cooling down tasks after uncovering a lesson. Closure activities provide teachers an opportunity to formally wrap up the day's session to create a powerful and lasting impression on the learners. When teachers carry out closure learning activities, they bring back to the attention of their learners the main purpose of the session to help them see how well they have fared in achieving the targets. Teachers provide simple and quick activities where the learners apply and transfer what they have learned, either individually or in groups. Why do teachers use closure learning activities? The purpose of closure learning activities is for teachers to identify in which areas do students get confused, check for their understanding of the lesson, and inform subsequent instruction. Closure learning activities also allow teachers to emphasize key information and correct misunderstandings. Why do students need closure learning activities? Through closure learning activities, learners engage in summarizing, synthesizing, and evaluating the various concepts and learning processes that were presented in the session. They get the chance to reinforce their understanding of the content. Learners find more meaning to what they have undertaken. But where closure learning activities originate? And who's the proponent? Closure learning activity has no definite or specific proponent. There is no concrete information that tells where or when does it originates or who started it. However, there are several people who believe in its importance in helping the students acquire and construct new knowledge. Let's take for example John Dewey. John Dewey opposed the early form of education on which relied on authoritarianism or rote learning and promotes students' engagement in classrooms. He believed that the key to holistic learning is to teach the students to apply and develop life skills, which they would use to improve themselves and serve their community. His idea has led educators to design and promote activities where learners would be able to practice and reflect on what they have learned by working on their own as well as with others. In support of John Dewey's claim, Johann Friedrich Herbart, a German philosopher and the founder of pedagogy as an academic discipline, introduced practical teaching methodology. He advocated 5 formal steps in teaching, which application is included as the 5th step in the instructional process. He believed that the newly acquired knowledge must be applied to the student by testing it after the lesson to ensure they have instilled the information. In doing so, the knowledge can be an integral part of students that would help them develop and have societal contribution. We may say that through closure learning activities, learners would be able to construct their knowledge and share it with their peers. Let's do the fast talk! 1. Does closure learning activity have its own proponent? 2. According to John Dewey, these skills are also needed for the students. 3. According to him, application is the fifth step in instructional process. What principle of teaching should teachers observe when conducting closure learning activities? Here are some principles that teachers should observe when conducting closure learning activities. Number 1. Acquiring long-term knowledge and skills is largely dependent on practice. Teachers should give practice activities where students will have a chance to apply what they have learned in the session. The more frequent practice activities are undertaken, the longer the knowledge acquired may be remembered and used. Number 2. Student creativity can be fostered. Opportunities to create and showcase outputs motivates learners to strive to become better at what they learn and do. In the process, they are able to strengthen their understanding and harness their skills and talents, thereby optimizing their potentials. Number 3. Students persist in the face of challenging tasks and process information more deeply when they set their goals. Students will proceed to overcome challenges as long as their goals are clear to them. Teachers must first guide their students in setting their learning goals. Then, teachers may provide their students with varied but increasingly difficult tasks. Number 4. Making sense of assessment data depends on clear, appropriate, and fair interpretation. Closure learning activities are a combination of tasks that produce learning evidences. These evidences are excellent sources for assessing learning. Results of student performances should be useful to inform both the teachers and learners on the quality and level of learning achievement. Teachers should use assessment data to improve instruction and assist learners. Learners should be able to determine how well they have fared in achieving the learning targets. Number 5. Good and frequent practice makes perfect. Edward Thorndike pointed out this principle in the law of exercise as one of the laws of learning he discovered that provided insights about effective learning. The law of exercise explains that a skill or knowledge can be strengthened through continuous drills and practices performed, provided that the context of such exercise are deeply rooted to the lesson content and be embedded in closure learning activities, afterwards leading to meaningful learning and application in real-life situations. We now understand that closure learning activities should be anchored with principles of effective teaching when the teachers are conducting it, to ensure that our students will acquire knowledge that can be used in real life. But wait! When? When is closure learning activities best used? From the word itself, the best time to use closure activities is before you close the class. A satisfying ending and a recap of learning made students aware of what they had accomplished. On a journal written by Leah 2014 entitled After 100 Years, Have We Come Full Circle in Lesson Design, it was mentioned that students need closure to reflect, to solidify, to internalize, and to give their learning a lasting relevance for their lives. So remember, if you want to ensure that what you teach today is useful for your students tomorrow and the days after, do not let them go home without having a lesson closure activity. Before we proceed, let's have a quiz breaker. In every statement, identify if the underlined word is correct or not. Give it a thumb up if it's correct and a thumb down if it's not. Are you ready? Let's start! First question. In conducting closure activities, student creativity should not be encouraged. The underlined word is not. Is it a thumb up or a thumb down? The correct answer is thumb down. Second, Edward Thorndike identified law of exercise as one of the laws of learning. Edward Thorndike is the underlined word. Is it a thumb up or a thumb down? The correct answer is thumb up. Third question. Students need to reflect, to solidify, to internalize, and to give their learning a lasting relevance. The underlined word is lasting relevance. The correct answer is thumb up. Now, the last question. The best time to use closure learning activities is before you start the class. The underlined word is start. Is it a thumb up or a thumb down? The correct answer is thumb down. You got a perfect score? Good job! There are a lot of closure learning activities that will make your learners comprehend and recall the lessons. Teachers also use these activities to wrap up the discussions. Hence, here are the top 7 easy, effective, and creative examples of closure learning activities for the learners. Number 1. DJ Summary. Learners write what they learn in the form of favorite song. Offer extra praise if they sing. Number 2. Exit ticket folder. Ask students to write their name, what they learned, and any lingering question on a blank card or ticket. Before they leave the class, direct them to deposit their exit ticket in a folder or bin labeled either "Got it," "More practice please," or "I need some help," whichever best represents their understanding of today's content. Number 3. Beat the clock. Ask a question. Give the students a 10-second discussion with peers before you call a random student to answer. Number 4. Dramatize it. Have students dramatize a real-life application of a skill. Number 5. Gallery walk. On chart paper, small groups of students write and draw what they learned. After the completed works are attached to the classroom walls, other students affix sticky notes to the poster to extend on the ideas, add a question, or offer praise. Number 6. Exit slips. Flashcards with 2 or 3 questions on it. The question stimulates the reflection on the material taught in class. Students are instructed to answer each question in 1 or 2 lines and hand them over to the teacher before exiting the class. And the last one, 3-2-1 strategy. On an index card, students are instructed to write 3 points they learned, 2 points they have questioned, and 1 feedback for the instructor about teaching methods, or tools, or strategies employed. How to carry out closure learning activities. Closure learning activities are given by the teacher to the students by the end of every lesson. By giving this kind of activity, the teacher will know if the students learn something from the lesson. It can be carried out through whole class, small group, or individual activities. There are some steps on how to do closure learning activities. Step 1. The teacher will use the last 10 minutes of the class. Step 2. Ask the students, what have you learned today? Step 3. Pick some volunteers to answer. And step 4. Ask for their feedback. DJ Summary. Learners write what they learn in the form of a favorite song. Step 1. The teacher will allot 15 minutes of the remaining time for the whole class activity. Step 2. The teacher will ask the students to talk with each other to summarize what they have learned from the lesson. Step 3. The students will share what they have learned to each other to come up with a summary. Step 4. The students will write their answer in the form of one favorite song. The students should be able to decide only one song to use for their activity. Step 5. The students will present their activity in front of their teacher. Gallery walk. On a paper, small group of students will write and draw what they learned. All completed works must attach to the classroom walls so that the other students will be able to see it and may add more ideas. Step 1. Create 6 questions or prompts about the current topic of study and write each one on a piece of chart paper or in a whiteboard. Hang or place the question or prompts in various places around the classroom to create 6 stations. Images, documents, problems, or quotes may also be used. Step 2. Group students into teams of 3 to 5 students, depending on the size of the class. Each group should start a different station. Step 3. At their first station, groups will read what is posted, and one recorder should write the group's responses, thoughts, and comments on the chart paper or whiteboard. For individual students' accountability, the teacher may also have the students record their own responses on a worksheet or put their initials below what they wrote. Having different colored markers for each student is also an option. Step 4. After 3 to 5 minutes, have the groups rotate to the next station. Students read and discuss the previous group's response and add content of their own. Repeat until all groups have visited each station. To involve all group members, the teacher can have groups switch recorders at each station. Step 5. Monitor the stations while the students participate. The teacher may also need to clarify or provide hints if students don't understand or misinterpret what is posted at their station. Step 6. Have students go back to their first station to read all that was added to their first response. Bring the class back together to discuss what was learned and make final conclusions about what they saw and discussed. Exit ticket folder. This activity is good for individual work at the end of the lesson. Step 1. On a piece of paper, the teacher will ask the students to write their name on it and write what they have learned and any lingering question that they have on a piece of paper that will serve as their exit tickets. Step 2. Before leaving the class, the teacher will ask them to deposit their exit tickets. Step 3. The student will deposit their exit tickets in a folder or bin labeled either "Got it," "More practice please," or "I need some help," whichever best represents their understanding of the day's lesson. Step 4. The students can finally leave the class after they deposit their exit tickets. Step 5. The teacher will now collect the student's exit ticket and evaluate the tickets carefully. The teacher will sort the tickets into piles. For example, tickets that are deposited in "Got it," tickets that are deposited in "More practice please," and the tickets that are deposited in "I need some help" folder or bin. The teacher will consider starting the next lesson with the interesting ticket responses or ask the students to share what they have written on their exit tickets. There are several activities that the teachers may use to engage the students in learning. Giving an activity at the end of every lesson may help the students to learn and acquire new knowledge. After knowing the different examples of closure learning activities, what do you think is the best and the most effective closure learning activity? Closure learning activities enhance the performance of the students in class, but there are challenges teachers might encounter while conducting this. Number 1. Teachers need to allocate enough time since conducting closure learning activities requires limited time only. Number 2. A teacher should take into consideration which method or methods are most appropriate for his or her students depending on their level of ability and competency. Number 3. Sustaining students' interest and active participation can be a challenge in incorporating lesson closure activities. Therefore, teachers should try to use a variety of methods. Number 4. Teachers may experience lack of resources or materials in conducting lesson closure activities. Number 5. In rounding up conversation to individual students, teachers need to use it consistently and fairly with all students, for some of them may perceive the comments as criticisms and feel threatened. Number 6. By wrapping up the session through closure learning activities, the teacher tends to over-explain certain key curricular information. Now that you are aware of the challenges when we incorporate lesson closure activities, make sure that you consider them to maximize the learning experience of the learners. When it comes to closing, there are sure problems that the teachers encounter. Here are 7 helpful tips to ensure the success of closure activity. First, plan. The flow of the class should be smooth. It is to avoid confusion because of mixed information. The teacher should plan for it and also plan what method of learning activity should be used. Second, prepare. If everything is already planned, the teacher should prepare the materials or resources before the start of the class so he or she will not fall short in the materials or resources that he or she will be needing. Third, timetable. The teacher should make a timetable for their schedule and follow it strictly. It is to avoid overtime in classes. Fourth, analyze. To know the most appropriate method of teaching, the teacher should analyze the situation inside the classroom. Fifth, aware. A teacher should be aware of her students and must keep an eye out for sitters or passive students. Sixth, explore. The teacher should explore and use varieties of method and see if she can sustain the student's attention and active participation. If not, he or she can use another method. 7. Brief explanation. In wrapping up the session, the teacher should not repeat the whole discussion but instead explain the lesson briefly so it can be fast and avoid overtime. In this webinar, we discussed about what closure learning activity is, how to carry it out, when to use it, and what are the examples and problems. And you also gain tips in doing it. Through this newly gained information, you can actually end your classes in a more successful and effective way by applying what you have gained. We hope that it can actually help you in your classes. Thank you for watching. I hope you have learned a lot from this video. Make sure to like and leave a comment. Please watch more presentations in Spread Series 1. Join us again in our next Spreads webinar series.